Welcome back to All This Math. This is Professor Parker. If you're here, go ahead, please hit the like button. If you haven't subscribed already, hit the subscribe button. If you have any questions about anything that I put up here on the board or that I discuss, please put your questions in the comment section. All right. Or if you just got comments, put your comments in the comment section. All right. And also share this video with at least one other person. All right. Now you might notice I have this Overbrook High School hoodie on. I am Overbrook out in West Philly. And the reason I'm wearing this is because I used to teach at Overbrook. I taught at Brook for 2 years, from 2016 to 2017, that school year. Then I taught there from 2017 to 2018. And then I left the school district of Philadelphia, and I was teaching on a college level and building up all this math. And here we are in 2025, 7 years later, after leaving Brook. I learned a lot while I taught at Brook. Some of y'all might not know that I taught there, but now you know. Learned a lot there, learned a lot about teaching. Everywhere I go and teach, I was a veteran teacher at that point, but veteran teachers are still learning. I learned a lot while I was teaching there, learned a lot about administration, learned a lot about the politics of the school district of Philadelphia, learned a lot about the politics of schools, but it was a good experience for me overall. I will say that. Now, what are we getting into? We're doing some more SEPTA math. SEPTA, Southeastern Pennsylvania Transit Administration or Association. I'm not sure what the A stands for, right? But it's the company that manages and facilitates the buses, the trains, the trolleys, and all that. All right. Now, I was reading an article, right, about SEPTA and some of their practices. And they were talking about fare evasion citations. So the tickets they give out if you try to like hop the turnstile to ride the sub or hop the turnstile and not pay to ride the L or something like that, right? Fare evasion citations. In Q1, which stands for quarter one of 2025, the SEPTA cops issued 2,000 citations. Now, what does Q1 mean? Q1 is the first quarter of the year. What's the first quarter of the year? You got to understand fractions. How many months are in a year? 12. 12 months from January to December. That's 12 months. All right. So this is why you got to know something about fractions. 1/4 is equal to 1/4. 1/4 is 1/4. That's why a quarter of a dollar is 25 cents, or 1/4 of a dollar. 25 cents is 1/4 of a dollar. 1/4 is equal to 1/4, right? So therefore, the first quarter represents the first 3 months of the year: January, February, March. January, February, March, that's Q1 or quarter one, because that's 1/4 of the year, right? If the year goes from January to December, sometimes the fiscal year, and this gets into business practices, the fiscal year might not start in January. The fiscal year might start in September, or it might start in April. It happens. It depends on what type of business you're in. But based upon this information, it appears as though SEPTA has a fiscal year that starts January 1st. That's why Q1 of 2025, they say, they're referring to January, February, and March based on the information that I read. All right. They issued 2,000 citations in those 3 months, January, February, and March of 2025. All right. What else did they say? That represented a 170% increase over the same period in 2024. So over the same period, meaning Q1, but not in 2025, Q1 over the same period, Q1 in 2024. So January, February, and March of 2024, they didn't give out that many tickets. So something is going on. And see, this is why it's good for you to understand mathematics. Because if you understand mathematics and you can do calculations, then you can start to ask questions about what's going on. And as long as you don't understand the mathematics, you're not going to be able to ask questions. And when you don't ask questions, the people that are in positions of power making decisions just keep on making those decisions and making those moves without anybody speaking up and saying anything about it, because they don't know how to do math. So when you learn how to do math, then you can start to see that something may not be right, or at least something may be worth looking into. But if you can't do the math, you're never going to look into anything because you're never going to ask no questions, right? So let's do the math and figure out how many citations were actually issued in Q1 of 2024. All right, let's do the math on that. Now, 170%, something you should know about percentages. When there's a 100% increase, that means that the original amount doubled. 100% increase means it doubled. It went up by the same amount. So if you had $5 and your money increased by 100%, now you got $10. Why? Because a 100% increase of $5 means that you have $5 more. What's 5 plus 5? 10. So whenever you have a 100% increase, that means something doubled. When you got a 200% increase, that means something tripled, right? 170 is almost 200, right? So whatever the amount of tickets that was given out in quarter one of 2024 was probably close to almost 1/3 of 2,000, almost 1/3. Because remember, 200%, a 200% increase means the amount almost tripled. Well, 200% would mean it actually did triple, but this is 170. 170 is kind of close to 200. Not that close, but kind of close. Like 195, 196, that's close. That's real close to 200. So that would almost represent a tripling of the amount. So now let's figure out how many citations they gave out in 2024. Now, because this represents percentage increase, we're going to deal with the percentage increase formula. I did another video dealing with percentage increase formula. Actually, I did a bunch of videos dealing with percentage increase formula. So let's get into that. All right. So now, first off, what is the percent increase formula? And this is important. You need to know the percent increase. And the percent increase formula is the same as the percent decrease formula. It's the same formula you would use if you're trying to do calculations involving a discount of a price or a markup of a price, right? Same concept. All right. And again, this also helps us to develop our problem solving ability. And we are human beings that will have problems. This is why it's important for us to learn math. In case anybody watching this wondering, why do I need to even learn this? Why is this even important and worth my time? Because you're a human being and you need to know how to solve problems. And this is one of the many things that math does. It helps to develop our brain so that we can solve problems. And if you're a person that can't solve problems, that means your life is going to be more difficult. It's inevitable, right? So don't want your life to be as difficult. You want to have problem solving skills. So here we are. All right, now what's the formula for percent change? So percent change, what's this triangle mean? This triangle is delta. It's a Greek letter delta. We use that in mathematics, algebra, physics, calculus to represent change. When a quantity changes, right? Something goes up, something goes down. It represents a change. All right, something increases or decreases. So the percent change is equal to this formula. The new amount, minus the old amount, divided by the old amount. So that's a fraction. That's a fraction. So the changed amount divided by the old amount. The change as a fraction of the original amount or the old amount. All right. And that's multiplied by 100. All right. That's the formula. So we want to know how many citations were issued in 2024. 2024 is the old amount, right? Because that's the old year. The new year is 2025, because that's the more recent year, 2025. Like as I record this video right now, it's 2025, right? So the new amount is 2,000. So we're going to replace the word new with 2,000. All right, so that's 2,000. The old amount, we don't know, because we don't know how many citations were given out in 2024. We don't know that. When that happens, actually, let's do this. I'm not going to use the word old. We use a variable. We're doing algebra. And in algebra, we're going to use a variable, which is represented by a letter, some letter. It don't matter what the letter is. Let's use P, since there's a letter P in SEPTA. So 2,000 minus P over P, because old and old, they the same thing. These two are the same thing. Old and old are the same thing, right? Times 100. Now watch this. Watch. I'm not going to write it like this. I'm going to write it like this. Now, why did I write it like that instead of like this? Because if I'm multiplying a fraction by a whole number, that whole number should be treated like a numerator. You should write that down in your notes. Whenever you're multiplying a fraction by a whole number, and 100 is a whole number, right? You treat the whole number like it's a numerator. And if it was a numerator of another fraction, then this numerator 100 would be multiplied by the numerator of this fraction. So that's why I'm writing it up here. I'm not writing it down there. So this is not going to be multiplied by this P in the denominator. This is going to be multiplied by this numerator. Now, what's the percent change? The percent change was 170% increase. So that's positive 170, because an increase is positive. A decrease is negative. Write that in your notes too. An increase is positive. A decrease is negative. All right. So this is going to be 170. Now, I'm also not going to convert this to decimal format. I'm not changing this to 1.7, because when we use this formula, we get the actual percentage. It gives us the actual percentage. We don't got to convert from, to a decimal or from a decimal. We don't got to do all that. That's one thing I like about this formula. All right, now let's get to the math. Our goal is to solve for P. So now we're doing algebra, right? We're doing algebra. We're going to solve for P. We're going to figure out how many tickets did the SEPTA cops give out, for people trying to hop the turnstile, trying to get on the sub for free, get on the L for free, whatever, right? How many tickets did they give out in 2024? Just in the first quarter, just in the months of January, February, March, right? We can figure that out. All right. Now, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cross multiply, right? Malcolm X method. I call that the Malcolm X method, right? Let's imagine this 170 was a fraction. It's not, but let's imagine it was. If it was, we could make it look like a fraction by giving it a denominator of one, So we could do that. Now, Malcolm X method. Why do I call it the Malcolm X method? Because Malcolm X is one of my favorite ancestors. All right. Did a lot for our community, did a lot for our people, right? And since we got to go into X formation anyway, we might as well say his name. Might as well say that man's name. All right. So we're going into X formation. So 170 times P. And then we're going to come up here with it. That's going to give us 170P. Right? See where the 170P came from? 170 times P. P times 170 gives us 170P. Now, also doing this cross product property or Malcolm X method, it enables us to get rid of the fractions. That's what it do. It helps us get rid of the fractions. Now I'm doing 1 times this numerator. Now 1 times anything is that thing. That's called the identity property of multiplication, right? 1 times any number, like 1 times 7 is just 7. 1 times a million is just a million. 1 times 3 is just 3, right? Because it's that number 1 time. So you only got that number because you got it 1 time. It's right there. All right. So now that's going to be 2000 minus 100p. No. Oh, let's go back. I did not write this correctly. Pay attention to this. Look at this real quick. I did not write this correctly. Because this 100 is being multiplied by this whole numerator, the 100 should not just have parentheses around it. The whole 2000 minus p should have parentheses around it. That's a common mistake. That's a rookie mistake I just made. That is a rookie mistake I just made. Because based on how that was written, I would have only multiplied the 100 by the negative p. And then I would have ended up with the wrong answer. Because this 100 needs to be multiplied by the whole numerator, not just the p. It needs to be multiplied by the 2000 also. And if I didn't multiply the 100 by 2000, I would have had the wrong answer. That's a rookie mistake. All right. So you see, mistakes happen to the best of us. All right. I've been doing this for teaching for 20 years, and I've learned this as a student, and I was doing it in classes in elementary, middle, and high school, way before in college, way before that. And I still made the mistake. It happens. The important thing is you find your mistake because you constantly should be looking at your work as you're working through problems, trying to look for mistakes. You should be constantly looking for mistakes. And I'm like, oh, hold up. Why would I do 100 times P? Something ain't right. Right? So, that's how it is. Just like you come home, you know what I'm saying? You come home to your room and things out of order. You're like, whoa, what's going on in here? This ain't how I left it. Somebody been in my room. Now I got to ask some questions. Who been in my room, messing in my stuff? Same thing. Same thing with a math problem, with an equation. You got to be constantly looking, making sure everything is straight. All right. So now 100 times 2000 is going to be, we end up with a total of 5 zeros. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 2 times 1 is 2 with 5 zeros. So that is 200,000. Because 200,000 got 5 zeros in it. 2,000 times 100. You add the zeros up and put them on the end of 2. Where did 2 come from? 2 times 1. Multiply the non-zero digits. You get 2 times 1. 2 times 1 is 2. With the 5 zeros on it. That's 200,000. And then it's 100 times negative p. So then it's minus 100p. That's our new equation. No fractions. The fractions are gone. That's one thing I like about the Malcolm X method. It helps us get rid of the fractions, makes the work simpler. All right, so now I got another issue. I got p's in too many places. I need to have p in only one place, right? Right now I got p's in 2 different places. I need p in one place. So what I'm going to do is, because I like to have the variable on the left-hand side, I'm going to get rid of this one. That's on the right-hand side, right? And that's what you can do, right? You don't have to do it like this. You could get rid of 170p if you want to, but that's not how I'm doing it. I want to get rid of negative 100p. How do I do that? I do the opposite operation. Whenever I'm solving an equation, I'm trying to get rid of something, I do the opposite operation. So I do the opposite of subtracting 100p, which is adding 100p. So I add 100p on the right side and I keep it balanced. I got to stay balanced. So then I go to the left side. I don't add it to 200,000. I don't do that. I can anyway because they're not like terms, what we call like terms, right? I got a whole playlist on combining like terms that you should look at if you don't know how to combine like terms and what like terms are. All right. So plus 100p on the right, plus 100p on the left. These cancel out. That gives you 0. Bring your equal sign down. Bring the 200K down. I'm going to just write K because K stands for 1,000. Actually, K stands for kilo, which is the prefix in the metric system for 1,000, right? 200K, 200,000. All right, 170 plus 100 is 270p. Now we got 270p is equal to 200K. Now I'm trying to isolate P. How do I get P by itself? I need to get rid of 270. 270. So that P will be all by itself on the left side of this equation, right? Whenever you're solving any type of equation, you are constantly thinking about how do I get the variable isolated all by itself? Isolated all by itself. How do I do that? All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the opposite operation that's going on here. 270p means 270 times p. That's multiplication. That's multiplication, right? What's the opposite of multiplication? It's division. So we need to divide. Divide by the number, 270. And we got to keep it balanced. I don't just divide by 270 on the left. I got to divide on both sides of the equation. Both sides of the equation. So then I go over here. Divide this by 270. Right? So 270 divided by 270 is 1. And that's 1p. What does 1p mean? 1p means 1 times p, which is, again, the language of algebra, the language of math. 1p and p are the same thing. 1p and p are the same thing. So I don't need to write 1p. I just write p. Now over here, I need a calculator for this. 200,000 divided by 270. I'm trying to find out how many 270s can fit into 200,000. So I'm going to do 200,000 in my calculator. When you use your calculator, make sure you type the correct number of zeros. Make sure you don't type in 6 zeros or 4 zeros or too many zeros or 8 zeros. Make sure you type in exactly 5 zeros because that's 200,000. 200K is 200,000. All right, hit the divide button. Don't make a mistake and hit the multiplication, the plus sign or the minus sign. Nah, hit the divide button. Make sure you know what that is. Make sure you know your calculator too. That's another thing. Make sure you know your calculator. And also, I recommend not using your iPhone or your Android for the calculator because your phone is a distraction. Right? Only use your phone for the calculator app if you absolutely have to. Otherwise, get you one of these, like one of these like $10 scientific calculators. That's all you need, right? You don't need nothing too crazy, nothing too fancy. All right. So for this, you don't need a graphing calculator. One of these will work. Actually, you know something even more basic than this will work for this type of problem. So anyway, 200,000 divided by 270 is 740.74, but you can't have a fraction of a ticket, right? Can't give out a half of a ticket or a third of a ticket or a quarter of a ticket or 3/4 of a ticket. Nah, so we just gonna round. 740.74, we're gonna round it up to 741. So what does that mean? What does this information mean? Now we did all this math, we did this algebra, now we got a number for our answer, but what does it mean though? What it means is that in the first quarter of 2024, SEPTA cops gave out 741 citations. But then the first quarter of 2025, they gave out around 2,000 citations. That's a huge jump, right? That's almost 1,300 more tickets in the same period of time, the same time of the year. So now, because we did the math and we got these numbers, now we can ask some questions. Now we can try to think about, okay, well, why were there more tickets given out? Did SEPTA hire more cops? Did SEPTA shift their focus and start having cops posted up more on the Broad Street line or the Market Frankfurt L line? Did they do that? Or were they just given specific instructions to have quotas to make sure that they give out a certain amount of tickets, right? What's going on, right? Because something's definitely going on. Or was it where people just between 2024 and 2025, was it just that many more people hopping the turnstile trying to get free rides on the L and the sub? Like, what's really going on? But now we can ask these questions because we did the math. Without doing the math, then we can't figure nothing out. We don't have any ground to stand on to even start asking questions, right? So this is another reason why we should learn math. And this is also another reason why there are a lot of people out there in certain positions that do not want you to learn math. Because once you learn math, then you can start asking questions. And if you start asking questions, as an example, what if you have people that are in charge of organizations that are stealing money, right? Money that's supposed to be going to you and to your community. As long as you don't know enough math to be able to figure out that they're stealing money, you can't say nothing about it because you're not going to know to say nothing about it because you don't know enough math. So them people that's in there stealing, they safe as long as you don't know nothing. So it ain't no coincidence or no, accident that so many people are like, I hate math. I'm scared of math. I don't like math. I don't want to. This makes me uncomfortable. Why? You've been programmed. You've been programmed. You wasn't born like that. You've been programmed to hate math because there's so many people that's in positions that can take advantage of you as long as you don't know math. And as long as you run away from the math when you see it, them people are safe. So that's what you guys start thinking about, right? So stop running away from the math, right? Man up, woman up, go learn it, right? Because I'm telling you, people is out here taking advantage of people, stealing, right? Scamming, and you don't even know. Or if you do find out, you might find out years later when you should have known 5 years ago. But by that time, all the money been stolen, right? And you can't go get it back now. But if you knew the math up front, you'd have been able to say something. So this is why, like, there is a benefit to you feeling like, I don't need math. All I need to know how to do is count my money. I don't need to know how to do no algebra, how that's going to help me in life. All right. All right. We'll see. But yeah, but like I said, this is like, real Philly math, SEPTA, right? But, as you read, like I got this from an article, right? And when you read articles, which you should do, we should be reading. All right. I know a lot of us, again, that's another thing. We've been programmed to not like reading. We think reading is boring. I'd rather be watching a movie. I'd rather be on Instagram, rather be on TikTok, right? Okay, right. We don't want to read, right? That's another benefit to some other people that want to take advantage of you. As long as you're not reading, you're not really going to know what's going on. You're not going to know the history. And if you don't know the history, you're not going to understand why things are the way they are right now in the present. And also, you're not going to understand the future and be able to tell the future before it happens. Because a lot of times from knowing the history, you can predict what's going to happen because you knew what the conditions was 50 years ago or 100 years ago. And, oh, this is what happened in those conditions. Oh, dang. You know what? It's the same conditions. So probably the same thing going to happen. But if you don't know about the history, you don't know what's about to happen. Right? So, like I said, when you read in articles, look at the information and actually start thinking like, oh, what do you wonder about? I wondered about this. They said 170% increase. I'm like, how much is that? How many tickets did they give out in 2024? That's just how I read. I read like a mathematician. I read mathematically. I'm thinking mathematically when I read, right? So that's what you need to do too, right? And you definitely need to understand this formula, the percent change formula. Make sure you understand that formula, right? Understand that formula and apply it. You can apply this in a lot of situations. So yeah, anyway, yeah, like the video if you ain't like it already. Subscribe to the channel if you're not already subscribed. Share this video with somebody else, right? Please share this video with somebody else, especially if you're in Philly. Especially if you ride SEPTA, right? You take the trolleys or you take the buses or you take the L or you take the sub or you take the regional rail. You go out to the county or you come from the county into the city, whatever, you could definitely relate. And that's so important too. The math should be relatable, you know? Share this video with somebody. And if you still got questions about anything I said or anything I tried to explain, put your questions in the comments. All right, put your questions in the comments. But of course, run the video back and try to see if it makes sense, a second time. All right, so yeah, memorize this formula right here. And when you read, right, start reading. If you don't read already, start reading articles and newspapers and whatnot. And as you read information, when you see percentages and numbers and all that, start thinking like this. Start trying to figure stuff out, right? Because they might not put the information in the article, but you know math. You got the formula, so you can figure it out yourself. All right. See you on the next video. Peace.